Okay, so like I mentioned, very happy to have Mitch Radcliffe with us today from Earth 911. He is a veteran technology and journalist and marketing strategist. Looks like he spent quite a bit of time leading launches of consumer-facing sustainability platforms, Samsung.com, Ziff Davis. I'm not sure what ON24 is, Microsoft TechNet. Bing apps, and his clients include Audible, Time Warner, Ball Corp Software, and many other leading firms. To date, or currently, Mitch now sees the rise of sustainable practices following an adoption curve similar to digital technology. Sustainability awareness today is at the point similar to in 1993 when the World Wide Web appeared. And so that means that people are really informed about sustainability now and actually want to see some changes. And I think we're also in a place where we're seeing that a lot of people are very informed about recycling and zero waste and actually know that this is something we have to start to tackle. So Mitch has got a great platform that he'll tell us about. My name's Natasha Dyer. I've been with Sweep for probably the last year. And before that, I actually spent about a decade working on solid waste management plans at the municipal and state level, where I was really focusing on organics waste diversion from landfill these climate action plans. But now I'm with Sweep, where we're working on more of decarbonizing the entire waste stream. And I'll get into that a little more at the end of the presentation. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and I will let Mitch get going with his presentation here. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate the introduction.
Absolutely.
Thanks all for your attention today. I'm going to try to share a few thoughts, both from my experience as a journalist and a technology investor back in the 90s and early 2000s, where I helped start companies like Match.com and Audible and On24, which is a webinar services company. What I've seen is a very similar innovation diffusion pattern with technology and sustainability, and I want to talk about that. But first, let me explain a little about Earth 911. We're an information and media company that's built to accelerate the transition to the sustainable circular economy by changing consumer behavior, by making it easy for consumers to behave in circular and sustainable ways. So think of us as essentially an Airbnb for the circular economy, a platform for delivering choices that are available to consumers based on their locations, because we know, for instance, recycling or reuse opportunities vary from place to place, along with informative and engaging how-to guides to enable confident recycling, reuse, repair, composting decisions about not just products, but products and their packaging. In the circular economy, recycling is just one feature. In fact, it's really sort of the last resort. After reducing consumption, reuse becomes commonplace. Repairs to complex products are made easier, that we have refill and product stewardship business models that have really transformed the way that we think about our relationship with the stuff that we use. We may not own it anymore, and rather companies or supply chains might steward that material over the course of many generations of use. But to get there, we have to move from what I would describe today as a sustainable naive society to a sustainably native one, following a similar trajectory to the digital transition that I talked about a moment ago. A little background on Earth 911. We describe ourselves as a guide that helps people find their own shade of green, and that's across recycling choices, sustainable shopping choices, how to make buying and other life decisions in order to reduce your impact on the environment. My team acquired the company in 2018. We spent about a year learning what all the levers in the company did, how we could change user behavior. And then, of course, we ran into the pandemic. As we weathered COVID, we invested in growing a twice-weekly newsletter, which we grew from scratch to about 155,000 subscribers. And today we're integrating AI to provide personalized hyper-local circular living guidance via phone, chat, text, and email channels. We already have been providing a 1-800 cleanup number for many years that people can dial in, and it isn't kind of an aged experience where you key in what you're looking for and get answers. We also answer a lot of these questions by email and text for consumers on a regular basis. So many of the consumers out there who you deal with, well, if they cannot find a local solution, call us or ask us via email what they can do with various materials. And that's given us a really deep insight into what kinds of issues consumers are consistently running into. And what we do with these services and how we make money is twofold. On the one hand, we provide these capabilities, embedded search, embedded recycling support information for brands and municipal programs as embedded experiences. They can be in a site or built into an app. And we also have advertising on the site, something that, frankly, I would like to get away from as much as possible. But what we're talking about is how do we engage consumers, and informed shoppers can send a message, but it takes time. And what we try to do with the largest recycling and reuse database, we cover more than 280,000 municipal curbside drop-off and private recycling programs, in addition to reuse options such as donation programs, and then even private recycling alternatives like scrap metal companies, or e-waste dedicated drop-off locations. And our effort is always to inform rather than to dictate what our audience should do. So we explain their choices and the consequences for the environment, for the climate, and the communities that they are going to be impacting with their decision, so that they can choose, as I put it earlier, their own shade of green. And I think the best way to characterize what the one best practice that we have established that I believe has really set us apart is that we don't think in terms of one problem at a time for the consumer. We think about all the things they might take care of with a single trip and try to help them organize that by answering the question, what else can I do when I visit this location or when I take this action? So if they're asking about a material, we don't make them ask repeatedly, and can I take this material too? Rather, for each location in the database, we offer a complete list of all the materials that are accepted. So this is happens to be my local landfill and transfer station in Tacoma, Washington. And I can go through this entire list, which goes on several pages below what you can see on the screen here, to see what else I can take after finding this location for the initial material that I searched. And this has I think, a meaningful impact on the consumer experience, because rather than forcing them to ask a series of questions, which requires them to think in terms of materials and other context that they don't normally think about. I mean, their problem is, I've got a Coke can or I've got a blender. What do I do with it? A Coke can is a simple problem. It's one material. We can say, yeah, you can take that. Actually, you can put that in the curbside program in my community, as in most communities. But the blender, as an example, is a much more complicated thing with 4 or 5 different types of material: plastic, glass, rubber, in some cases, the metal blades, and the electronic base. Each of those things may end up in a different stream. And then you get to the packaging. The packaging might have been corrugated cardboard plus expanded polystyrene. They want to know what to do with each of those things, and at different stages in the relationship with the product and the packaging. So there's really 2 recycling touches for any purchase: the packaging and the product at the end of use. We try to help them think in terms of a systematic approach to, how do I use my time best to create the least impact on the environment, by summarizing all that information in one place. And that really, I think, sets us apart from the rest of the market. We are comprehensive. We cover more than 500 materials at 280,000 plus locations. Many of the other organizations are vertically oriented, like How to Recycle, which is primarily oriented around consumer product goods, or consumer packaged goods, excuse me. Call to Recycle, and both of these organizations do a great job, but only around one material. There are other organizations like the Recycling Partnership, which are focused on curbside programs only. And we think that this more comprehensive approach, which we're extending now to include not just recycling and basic reuse information, but a wide range of circular services, including refill programs, repair programs, more reuse options. We're trying to integrate things like the Buy Nothing project, so that you can, from the Earth 911 site, list something that can be shared with somebody in your community. And all of these things are developmental efforts that we're continuing to evolve as we grow the company. And all of these capabilities, as I said earlier, can be embedded into a brand's site or a municipal program site and customized in a variety of ways. So, for instance, if you have a municipal program and you have a different set of rules than the community right down the road, we can create product guides that help your organization communicate your specific requirements to the consumer when they want to recycle. And the result of all of this effort over the past few years is that we have a very big lead in the marketplace. We get about 650,000 visitors a month. That's compared to Call to Recycle's 100,000. Recycle Nation has about 75,000. How to Recycle around 71,000 visitors on an average month, according to SimilarWeb. And in fact, if you visit howtorecycle.info, except for their plastic bag recycling program, when they find a material that somebody's asking about where they can take it, they point to the Earth 911 database. So our database and our mapping capabilities have really got a major advantage in the marketplace in terms of consumer awareness. We're very highly rated in Google. So if you search on recycling topics, a lot of the times, not our search database, but our database of how-to guides will pop very, very high in the search results. This is the basis for which, or on which we're continuing to grow the company. And the reason that we believe that this is the right thing to be doing, and something that I felt when I decided to buy the company back in 2018, is sustainability is happening. We are at an inflection point. It really started with the extreme weather in 2018 and 19 that led to the Texas power outage in the middle of winter in 2020 or early 21 that have transformed people's understanding of the impact of climate change and made them start to think about how they can change themselves in order to reduce the impact on the environment. And there's a lot of data, and most of this data comes from the Wunderman-Thompson Regeneration Rising report, but there's also a little here from McKinsey. 89% of consumers say that brands and companies need to do a lot more to reduce their carbon impact. 88% say that sustainability should be a standard business practice. And in fact, McKinsey reports that those companies that are doing truly disclosing their ESG impacts are seeing a much higher cumulative growth over the past 5 years than products that don't do that. An 8% difference at the raw number level. That's actually about a 40% increase over the performance of these traditional products. But the keystone data point, which is not on the slide because I wanted to say it, is that 81% of the consumers who were surveyed by Wunderman-Thompson say that they'll buy from a company that helps them recycle. And I think that's the key thing we need to think about as the waste management industry. And perhaps waste isn't even the right word anymore. But we need to think of ourselves as in service to the creators of customer experience. How can we build into the purchase of a product the end of use resolution of that product for the consumer? We know that a lot of experience is now the center of a lot of people's buying decisions. And the experience that we have of buying a product can be enhanced with services like an end of use recovery and collection program that gives them a confident and transparent experience of putting something back into the system and seeing it reused, rather than, as many people believe, even when they put stuff into the recycling bin or take it to a transfer station, that it's not recycled. And I know we all know that that isn't the case, but we aren't doing a good job of communicating that. A services-oriented approach to thinking about this is really key to moving the waste management system from the periphery to the center of a circular economic strategy. So how do we get there from here, in the sense of the old Rhode Island joke, where too often these days we say you can't get there from here. As I said earlier, the circular economy is going to follow an innovation adoption pattern very similar to that we experienced with technology. So let's look at the 3 stages of adoption. There's the initial stage in which, in the 1950s and 60s, computer science developed as a discipline. Likewise, in the 60s through the 80s, environmental science developed and found its voice ultimately in James Hansen's 1988 congressional testimony, which transformed the moment, or was the transformative moment, when environmental science went from purely a laboratory discussion, for the most part, to one that became central to business concerns. That's also what happened in technology. From 1970 to around 1993, the computer industry began to organize standards. And that was a highly political, highly competitive process that was catalyzed, or that led to the setting of the stage for widespread consumer adoption when the technology was ready. And the transformative moment there, the catalyzing moment, was the introduction of the web in 1993. And from that point on, society went from 1993 to about 2012 learning to speak digital. And I happen to have written a number of books and a lot of articles during that period of time. We'd have to explain what a bit was, what a byte was, why a modem made a crazy sound when you connected to the internet. All of these things were just basic pieces of information that today we take for granted, but that at that time, ordinary consumers didn't understand. And I think we're at the same point with sustainability now. We have to create a nomenclature, a shared language that expresses the values and the ethos of sustainability, but does it in such a way that it compels people in the emotional sense more than anything else to participate, because it makes them feel good about their contribution to the world or the future of the world. So what happened when we got to that breakthrough moment in 2012, when we were truly digitally native? A lot of weird stuff started to happen. Uber disrupted the taxi industry business. Likewise, Lyft came along, and in addition to disrupting the taxi business, they collectively changed the way that we order and access food. So today, 28% of people regularly order food for delivery at home. That wouldn't have been possible without the digital technology and comfort with the idea that their data was secure, that they understood that what was happening in the background behind the technology wasn't intruding on their lives too much. That's when consumers really bought into ideas. So you saw things like Airbnb change the very definition of where to stay. It wasn't just a hotel anymore. It could be somebody's back room, or it could be a rental house on the coast that was made available on a part-time basis, but sometimes occupied by the owner of the home. All sorts of things happened. Social media changed the way that we interact with one another entirely. And that was all a function of people ultimately being comfortable enough with the technology that they would take new risks with new experiences. We have to do the same thing with sustainability now in 10 years instead of the 20 it took to do digital transitions. But we have the technology, the digital technology, to make that faster transition. So there's several ways that we're going to really activate the circular economy. But the key point I want to make is that the circular economy itself is a marketer's dream. It's a continuously connected partnership with customers based on what I will describe as edge network principles. Essentially, you move a lot of the work that used to be done by organizations to the consumer at home. And there's a couple of examples of this. You can see it in e-waste and ITAD processing programs now, where when they successfully activate upstream sorting, it lowers the processor costs. And this is something that is also, for instance, rapidly transforming, rapidly transforming textiles recycling. I'm particularly impressed with SuperCircle. It's a recently launched company. They actually spun out of a shoe company that is using very high trade-in values, store credit trade-ins, to get consumers to start to sort the materials before they send them in. And the result is they don't have to, as organizations like Goodwill that take a lot of materials, go through the sorting process, which is the most expensive step before you begin to process the material. SuperCircle gets the consumer to put their cotton only and their cotton blends or cotton poly blends in different bags or in different parts of the box that they send them, so that that pre-sorted material can be quickly processed. And by that, I mean the buttons can be removed, the zippers can be removed. Anything that is a contaminant is easily taken off the material because you already know into which stream that textile is going. Now, what that allows them to do is lower the cost of processing. And as a result, they are able to give these very generous rebates to the consumer. It can be 10, 20 or more dollars worth of store credit for sending in a pair of jeans. But what that does is lower the cost of the next sale to that consumer and essentially locks them into buying that from the same company with whom they are recycling. Super Circle does this through partners. So 10 Tree, Reformation, and about 16 other major fashion brands are starting to use Super Circle's process. And as a result, for every dollar they spend on recycling services, they make $4 in incremental revenue. And that utterly transforms the outcome, both financially for Super Circle and the brand, as well as the recycling output. So today's textile, or let's say yesterday's textile recycling process, produces about an output of about 14.7% of materials being recycled. Super Circle reports over 90% of the materials that they get are successfully recycled, and those that can be resold are resold before they even go into the recycling process. So they get a much higher recovery and reuse rate while actually having an economically successful recycling model. And I think we have to think about this from a market coordination perspective. Just as every market needs a platform or an environment where people share information in order to coordinate activities, about 5 to 10% of the circular economy is going to be organized around those kinds of activities here as well. As waste management professionals, if we can plug into those capabilities so that we're helping to move materials from, let me put it this way, uneconomic streams into economic streams, we can really radically improve the overall performance of the economy and so forth. So what we think you need to do is help people at the first step when they're making a buying decision. We have the ability to tell you whether or not a thing that you are considering could be recycled locally. We call it pre-cycler support. At the use phase, you need more information about how to get the most out of the product, how to reduce your energy use if it's an electronic product. There's a lot of different kinds of lifestyle guidance that needs to be delivered to consumers to make them comfortable with the changes they need to make in their interactions with products and packaging. And then at the end of use, you need to be able to give them repair, refill, reuse, donation, upcycling, composting, and all sorts of other new practice information that is just emerging now. A subscription program that gives you refills of your personal care products, for instance, could transform the amount of waste leaving the home in the first place. And then the last part, and this is really, I think, where our industry is most challenged right now, is in terms of providing validation and evidence. And we know that there's a lot of complication in terms of the mass balance calculation as we move into a different phase of the recycling industry. Keeping track of that and expressing it in easy to understand consumerese so that they feel like the action they took was worthwhile is critical to restoring the sense of confidence that we need people to have in the system. And again, that's another element or aspect of this notion of sustainably native thinking. So what do we have to do to get there? And I think the biggest challenge, and this is why we joined SWEEP, is to create that shared nomenclature, a simple language we can all understand. And the way to do that is to start to map products, product materials, and packaging materials to local capabilities. And we have to do it without forcing the consumer to think in terms of plastic number 1 or plastic number 2 or corrugated cardboard. They don't think in material definitions that we do as an industry. They think in terms of the products they have in their hand and how those products map to the local options that they need to have available in order for something to be recycled. So we believe that the next step in simplifying the economy, which is already underway in a variety of ways, is to map products to the output or the outcomes that we need them to achieve in order for there to be a circular process in the first place. A simple example, as I said earlier, is the Coke can. I can't tell you how often we get questions from people that literally don't seem to know that a Coke can is made of aluminum. And it's not that they're not well informed, it's they don't think that way. They may have a local nomenclature like it's a tin can. So they don't think in terms of the materials that we do. We need to translate that for them to make it easy. The blender that I described earlier, the fact that you have to take the glass jar and put it into one stream and the electronic base and put it into another seems very mystifying to people. They think in terms of, well, I bought this, it should all go back in one piece, but we know it can't. So we have to do the mapping to help them make those steps confidently. And that's really, I think, the critical next step. And this is what we want to work with the community on. I want to just wrap up by, again, reinforcing the idea that the circular economy is going to transform end-of-use management. And we're going to be able to use digital infrastructures that we've built over the past 3 decades to enable a full life cycle, continuous partnership between manufacturers, retailers, consumers, and the community systems that they rely on to recycle and keep materials in use in order to provide the basis for constant reuse and multiple generation applications of the materials or the stock of our circular economy. This always on relationship is nirvana for marketers. It'll lower the cost of keeping and pleasing the consumer. And within a decade, products are going to educate buyers about how to keep the materials in use. And there'll be a raft of new business models once we become sustainably native that will help transform packaging strategies and the way that we buy or the way that we lease the things that we use, so that someone, an organization, whether it's a manufacturer or even a community, is stewarding those materials either globally or locally. And the circular economy is a much more complicated thing than one simple big circle, which is how we often see it. It's many, many nested circular economies that need to interact in coordination. And that's why more investment in the mapping of products to materials will help us to really catalyze an extraordinary experience for consumers that makes it easy to be sustainable. So just as digitally native services did the physical transform the physical economy in the 2010s, we think that by 2030, the sustainably minded or the sustainably native society that we can start to build will really transform everything in terms of the use of materials, the design for recyclability of products and packaging, as well as a lot of things we can't imagine today. I challenge anybody to say you knew Uber was coming, or that you knew that Airbnb could transform the way that we think about where to stay on a vacation. There's so much opportunity, and we do always look backward at our recycling system and have a lot of criticisms and a lot of criticisms leveled at it. But that's where we have to move from to a new future. And we want to do that together with all of you. So if you would like to talk with myself or Mike Osborne, our Chief Operating Officer, we would love to have a conversation. And with that, I would be happy to start to address some questions or have a conversation.
Thanks, Mitch. We actually will allow a bit of time for questions at this time if you'd like to, and then I can go into Swoop's presentation in maybe about five minutes or so. But I wanted to thank you for sharing your knowledge and contributing to our collective learning, especially on the inflection points of change and kind of how that psychology happens for people. And as Mitch mentioned, we're very excited about Earth 91's membership because we are looking forward to transforming the materials management industry into one that's easier for constituents to know what they're recycling. So providing a common nomenclature, like he mentioned, I do like that word. But really what's important is that we're looking to shifting that burden back to the manufacturers, right? So that we do have a better circularity in wanting those materials back so that we can actually create circularity. So yes, I would love to take any questions for Mitch if you guys are interested for the next 5 minutes or so, and then I can run into what Sweep is doing. Any questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves, or let's see, let me look at the chat here.
This is the hub of Economies.
I followed a link. Sorry, that was the audio you just heard.
Oh, that's not you.
No, that was me. I was
Yes, gotcha. Okay, yeah. In fact, will you be sharing your slides, Mitch?
Yeah, I'll send them to you so that you can
Yeah,
send them.
great. Yeah, because after our webinars, we definitely send out all the information, and then we link to we upload everything to YouTube, and you can watch it again too. But I will share the slides after as well. But yeah, I can hop into Sweep if you guys are ready, and say you can ask questions after that too. We'll be here a little while. So yeah, thanks, Mitch. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you joining us today, and we're really looking forward to creating some great work with you too. Really digging into this work. So,
It's
oh,
gonna
sorry.
be
Looks like Kelly Toth has a raised hand.
I don't see that, but I take your word for it.
Yes. Are you there, Kelly? Oh, look. Sorry, y'all. I've never moderated a webinar. Is Kelly Toth there? I think everyone can unmute. I'm not. Is that so? Is Kelly Toth there? Okay, she said it was a mistake. No worries.
Zoom can be confusing because they change the UX every week.
Oh wow, what's the UX, Mitch?
The user experience.
But how would that change where you
Oh, they'll put a new button or they'll create a new
Gotcha.
capability.
Yeah. Like everything on your phone, your icons change for no reason, that type of thing. You're like, I just learned where everything's at. Okay, let me upload my PowerPoint. Let's see. Okay. Okie doke. Great. Okay. Great, y'all. Thanks again, Mitch. Like I said, now going to tell you all about Sweep and how today's topic correlates and fits in if cities were looking to certify, and how using Mitch's database would actually help you with where those points would lie with certification. It's just basic education and outreach outlets. It's very important to Sweep. It's one of our categories that looks at ways to reduce waste at source and actually find better ways for real circularity and real recycling. So let's see. So at Sweep, we have a vision of a world without waste, where all of society's discards are viewed as commodities to be continuously cycled back to their highest and best use. And the sector our work focuses on tackling this challenge is the solid waste industry. And so we're looking at how we can incentivize this industry to get out of the business of landfilling anything really and to become circular, an industry that moves from calling itself municipal solid waste handlers and instead sustainable materials management handlers. And sustainable materials management is a term that was coined by the EPA in 2009 as a policy framework challenging this linear economy of take, make, use, and throw away that we've all known all of our lives. And so we're kind of looking at that reverse supply chain feedback loop, like how can the solid waste industry take part in sending messages back to manufacturers that they need to redesign products so they aren't destined for landfills. And a little bit about our background. We were founded in 2016 by Rob Watson, who's the same man that founded LEED. As many of you may know, LEED is the largest and fastest growing most recognizable green building rating system over the last 25 years, and it's being used in over 170 countries around the world. And just as it was when Rob was creating LEED to measure efficiency in building energy and water usage, and saw that there was no standard by which to measure these inefficiencies, as he was looking at solid waste, he saw similar irregularities. Sorry, something's wrong with my screen. Sorry about that. Okay, he saw similar irregularities in the waste industry, and that was that there was no universal measurement for diversion, or even that there were universal definitions for materials being diverted. So Sweep was created. According to the US Census, there's over 90,000 local governments in the United States, and in those 90,000 districts, you will see upwards of 1,000 different types of recycling programs and systems. And in those 1,000 programs, why there are even 1,000 programs is because there's been no standardization in the way the industry defines the materials flowing through the system. So for example, if you take a look at a few waste characterization studies, you'll see a certain type of plastic being singled out and called one thing on one study, and then seeing that same plastic being clumped together with another grouping or category of plastics on another. And so because there isn't a clear picture of materials being diverted, there can't be a clear picture of the volume of what's being diverted. Another good example, what we know as green organic waste, where I spent about 10 years, I'm always talking about food waste and yard trimmings, but on one study, green waste will simply mean the yard trimmings the city collects. And then on another waste study, it will mean the same yard waste commingled with food waste that then gets pushed to the curb for collection, right? So again, there's no real congruency in definitions. Currently, everyone makes up their own rules and definitions. That's why we have those 1,000 programs or so. And then they run off and declare victory because they actually were just looking at a smaller piece of the waste stream. And so they're like, we're diverting waste or yard debris. But what if this city next to you is diverting yard debris and trying to get their constituents to divert food waste and not having as good a time? And so there's no real congruency, like I said, in that volume that's actually being diverted. So at SWEEP, one of the key pillars of our work is setting about to clearly define materials, categories, and industry terms, and we're creating a standard so that one day it will be possible to compare progress across cities based on metrics and systems that everyone is using, and recycling can get better. And so this is a snapshot of the ecosystem that we exist in, that we operate in. And for the sake of this slide, the world is perfect. And organizations and businesses take time to certify that what their facilities and buildings push out to the curb is fully recyclable and fully compostable, because maybe they've gone through that third-party verification system that is called True. And so then when they roll out their carts to the curb, all separated and nice, truly recyclables in one bin and truly compostables in another. This is where SWEEP comes in and expands its view to the ecosystem that is the entire materials management industry and begins to certify what's going on a macro level. So once those materials have gotten on a truck, what's happening to them? Of these valuable resources, right? Are they headed to a MRF for further separation and circularity? Are organics headed to composting facilities? And then what about C&D materials? Are they headed to new markets and reuse stores for true circularity, creating jobs and just keeping stuff in continuous use? Because we are deforesting the planet. We're mining. I mean, we are utilizing things that took sometimes upwards of millions of years to make. Because I mean, your plastic bottle, that's oil, right? A quarter, you fill up a bottle, a quarter of its volume or whatever. That's how much oil it took to make that plastic bottle, to either that virgin plastic, to ship it to you, transport it to you, just for you to drink that for 20 minutes or use that, maybe refill it another day. So we really got to start to figure out how to keep these materials in circularity, because everything's come out of the planet and took some time to get here to us, right? To grow and actually be mined to make things we're using for so little a bit of time. So SWEEP then is that third-party system that incentivizes and verifies that local governments and their solid waste handlers are creating circular and environmentally sound operations. And so because of this model of analysis, the only parties eligible to participate in SWEEP certification are local governments and their materials management handlers themselves. And then membership with SWEEP is then extended to nonprofits and consultants, different conduits like the wonderful work Mitch is doing. And then though a municipality and a processor can be a member too, but membership is really, certification is just really looking at the system and how we can make it a little more green and sustainable and environmental. But members are very important to us because, like Mitch was saying, we're all working together to create a nomenclature that is in this standard that helps these cities go through this process. And we've had hundreds of subject matter experts over the last 7 years that SWEEP has been around, all from across the materials management industry, some with decades of experience, donating thousands of hours of their time over these last several years. And so membership is just as valuable to us as well. And so these are the tools that we use. This is our standard, which is called the certification manual here. And this is what you get if you go through certification. It provides you a step-by-step information on how to certify and in-depth case studies on best practices with the purpose and intent behind each performance category and credit. And you all may be familiar with Retract Connect if you've ever gone through the municipal MMP, municipal management program, something that cities and states go through just to, I guess, determine how much waste they're creating, where SWEEP is looking at how we can make it more circular and sustainable. So let's see. And so on to what the standard is measuring, and I'll go over the performance categories to kind of break it down for you. And we have 5 of them, and they target different parts of the solid waste life cycle. And so we have sustainable materials management and policy. And we've got waste generation and prevention, solid waste collection, post-collection recovery, and post-collection disposal. And after adding that up, all up, that's good for 100 points. But we've also left some room for innovation. So that's like if there's something that's not called out in the standard, like we didn't think of it, but you've come up with some new and clever and novel way to, you know, do diversion or have better safety for your employees. Anything that is a category that you've actually improved on that is not mentioned in the standard, that's where that innovation comes from, and those are worth 10 points. So there's a total possible of 110 points. Just like LEED, it's added up in the same way. You can certify at the certified level, silver, gold, and platinum. And eventually there will be a sweep 0, which will just be pass fail. And I'm not that learned on that one, on how that one's going to work, but that will come eventually. And so I'll give you a brief overview of each category, and I will be sure to tell you where Earth 911's cities that utilize Earth 911's recycling database, where that would fit into our categories. And so first up is sustainable materials management policy. And this is the policy, the paper piece. This is what mandates a local government is enacting to make sure resources skip the landfill. So if you start to create laws, you're helping to guarantee that the waste diversion programs you're creating are then sustainable, right? Like they will live another day instead of just creating programs. But if you're enacting ordinances and bans and, you know, keeping stuff out of the landfill as an ordinance, then that makes that diversion program stick that much more. Here's a good example I always like to think of, pay as you throw. As you all may know, it's a program for residences that encourages diversion of materials into proper available streams because people are paying for their trash based on how much they throw away. Like any other utility, I tend to think this would be the easiest way to teach people in real time how to recycle, because if they have to, if you're telling them that whatever you're diverting from your waste stream, you don't have to pay for because it's going to a recycling truck, great. But then like the less and less your trash is, that's what you're paying for. So I think this is one of the easiest ways to teach people diversion. And a good case study is looking in on the city of Gainesville, Florida, who instituted a pay-as-you-throw model several years ago, and they were able to report a reduction in 18% of the solid waste they collected, and this saved their residents almost $200,000 in that first year. As I go through this PowerPoint, we've got on the bottom there to download the standard, so you'll be able to kind of see where these things, you can download the standard and then pull up these things and call them out after you look at the YouTube, and you can actually follow along and see how these things might play out in your neighborhood. Okay, and so the next category is waste generation and prevention. And this category basically gives points for successfully reducing waste generation on the front end. So source reduction, are you educating your ratepayers about waste reduction so that they create less of it in the beginning through public outreach and education campaigns? Are you supporting things like repair programs or fix-it cafes, tool libraries, things that neighbors can get together and share so that they don't have to continue to buy one-off things and you know, just more sharing and more circularity within neighborhoods and communities. And this is where a local government taking on education resources through a database of recycling and reuse, like Earth 911 has shared with you today, is where you can gain points for that WGP performance category. So there's 3 points available, and again, download the standard, and you can read along and see where that would fit in. And so the next category is the solid waste collection category. And this looks at the transportation piece of a materials management operation. So this is where you earn points by doing things like reducing your greenhouse gas emissions that are generated from your collections vehicles, by improving the fuel economy and reducing that truck's environmental footprint. And so this can be done by working on your fuel efficiency, by optimizing your collection routes with things like artificial intelligence, just like Sweep member AMCS Group does with their telematics products offerings. And that's like making sure, so that optimization, that's like making sure that trucks are taking the proper routes, or like they're making the proper turns, and that their routes are mapped out, and they're not idling, so they're not wasting gas and creating and continuing to create emissions into the atmosphere. They even have an AI that can be put into dumpsters that lets the hauler know if it even needs to go out and see if the bin needs to be pulled this time. So that saves, that's efficiency. Like you don't have to go out and make that run if you don't need to. Like if the bin isn't full. And so there's also improved fuel economy and swapping out fossil fuels from those vehicles by electrifying them or running them on natural gas. There are also credits that can be gained in SWEEP for staying on top of the safety and training of your workers, since the level of danger facing sanitation workers in collections is still very, very high, only dropping from 5th most dangerous job in 2020 to 7th. And it's historically been as high as 3rd most dangerous job. So SWEEP, we have this full holistic approach to solid waste where we're working on people, planet, and profit. So we definitely have credits in there that are based on the human experience, the human impact of the municipal solid waste industry on the worker. So there are points gained here for increased worker safety, through increased worker training. This category also gives points to living wages being provided to solid waste collection staff, because we know the human toll, the human impact of this industry is pretty high. So these are all characteristics displayed very, very well through another member of ours, Recology. They're a waste management company littered up and down the West Coast. I say that's kind of fun. So they tout a worker safety rate of, they've had 49% reduction in lost time since 2015. And they've got great living wages and healthcare because they're 100% employee owned. And looks like they've improved their fuel economy by 83% for their entire fleet. And so the next category is post-collection recovery. And in general, this category focuses on landfill diversion of all recyclable materials through all kinds of different recovery methods and programs, making sure resources are getting back into the market to get them to their next and highest best use. So again, are you composting your organics? And are you getting C&D materials back into proper markets? Those are the ones I just think of all the time. And then you can also see in this, also in this this category, you can get points by actually making the facility better sustainable, better, like a net zero impact on the environment as well. So think LEED green building here. Going through the process of making a low impact facility by making it energy and water efficient, and by your operations having no negative social or environmental impact on the surrounding community or people. So we call that good neighbor policies here at SWEEP. And so that's just making sure that, like, yeah, your landfill isn't off-gassing, or nothing about your operation is affecting these communities that sometimes are populated around solid waste operations, making sure that your leachate isn't getting into the groundwater, just making sure that anything about your operation is not affecting people that sometimes live around waste management operations. You can also see here that a Bull Lake recycling and transfer station was able to be LEED certified, where they dramatically reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 172 metric tons per year, I have here. And they experienced 63% energy savings and 59% in water savings. And then our final category is post-collection disposal. This category in general measures how effectively you dispose of materials that are truly waste and have no higher value. So that's really after you've gotten every last piece out of that waste stream that can be recycled, and it's just waste. I always think of that inert dust for some reason, but I know we're not there yet. Like, like if you break glass and whatever's left, but I know we're not there yet. We still have so much material that's going into the landfill. But it's important to note that we don't give any points for this. We just give for disposal, but there are best management practices that are incentivized with the credits in this category. And so you can see something here where post-collection, like, or credits points you can get for post-collection is like landfill gas. So before we've actually had these bans where we're getting organics out of landfill, we know that organic waste is the most populous, or food waste really is the most populous material in any landfill. And so, like I said, but as we're working on these programs to start getting that out there, of course, of course, organic waste is still in the landfill. So organic waste in landfill is creating methane, right? And so you can get credits by like capturing that methane gas and turning it into renewable energy power for buildings, and actually like an RNG gas that can power fleets. And this, a good example is shown here by Vogel Disposal. They're a waste and recycling hauler in Pennsylvania that also runs at their own landfill. And by capturing this landfill gas and turning it into a renewable compressed natural gas, they've been able to power their own waste and collections vehicles. And that's 38 collections vehicles in their fleet. And they've been able to power other fleets in the community, such as bus and delivery services, by creating these public fast fuel stations. And this has also created another revenue stream for them. So this is actually really turning waste into gold again, something that you would think is a waste like methane that seems to be intangible. They're actually capturing it and making another revenue stream by turning it into power, energy. So this is a quick snapshot of where SWEEP is currently working. Here's a listing of the local governments and one hauler and processor that are currently participating in SWEEP certification coast to coast. Yep, just a few of them there. We're looking to go public next year. And then these are some benefits of going through SWEEP certification. Like it's been shown that municipalities that go through the process can realize up to 25% more diversion due to savings from landfill tipping fees. Also, because SWEEP is measuring your performance as a third-party verifier. Once you go through that process, you're sending a message to your constituents that you are a leader in sustainability. Something Mitch has even said that I know more people want businesses to be more sustainable. More people are very conscious and aware of the climate impacts of businesses' footprint. And also getting a third-party verification shows that it's, you have no skin in the game. There's a lot of corporate greenwashing these days, and you getting this verification, a third-party verification, really it clearly shows your impact. Also, with a new budding workforce, more young people are showing concern for sustainability and climate conscious business models. So they're very interested in linking themselves to corporations that are doing the work, walking the talk. And so you're looking to getting into these new pools of young talent that statements like certifications would really, third-party certifications would appeal to them, we think. And so you're able to tap into a more educated and activated workforce. So recapping, some ways to get involved with SWEEP again are through the certification. If you want to join as a member for a nominal fee, we love that. And you can interact with people like me and Mitch, who are just working to create the standard to judge local governments and solid waste providers by, to make sure we start to begin to work on this materials management problem that is waste. We should be starving landfills, right? Decarbonizing the solid waste industry and making truly, really just sending that message back up to manufacturers to start manufacturing this stuff in such a way that it really can skip the landfill and actually become circular and goes into new products. So please join SWEEP or look out to become certified. This is a listing of our members here. Most of them, I believe. And then some final benefits of membership. If you do not go through the certification, we are working currently right now on creating our professional accreditation and training program that is similar to the LEED Green Associate. And that's the person that helps people as they go through the green building strategies. And if you join, we would love to give you that at 10% discount. So keep in touch with us. If you want more information, you can scan that QR code and send us an email, that type of thing. And join us for our next webinar. That will be oh no, who did that? Did I do that? Did you see that? Did I do that?
That's one of those new features of Zoom I was talking about.
You're saying that.
It reacts to what you do. If I do a thumbs up, it'll see.
That was creepy. But let me just stop. I didn't realize I went for so long. If you guys have any questions, please pipe in. I'm normally pretty quick, I think. But yeah, if you want to, I can stop sharing. But yeah, join us for the next webinar, January 18th. United States Composting Council, as you all may know, they will be joining us then. So sorry about that. Wow. I got too excited. Any questions that I can ask? I think we have some questions in the Q&A. Question for Mitch, is Earth 911 advertised or promoted to average consumers in any way? I could imagine that people who wouldn't necessarily seek out this info on their own might start using the platform once they realize how easy and informative it is.
So we have grown entirely on organic marketing. We have not spent money on that. And we're in the midst of raising some funding so that we can really ramp up our presence in paid media in addition to that organic marketing that we've been doing.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think we may have covered it. Wow. Thank you, Mitch. Thank y'all for joining. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to send them to me, and I can even get them over to Mitch if he didn't provide his email address. But please keep talking to us and letting us know how you'd like to interact with us. And we look forward to providing another webinar in a couple months. And we hope that you all have a great holiday coming up. Stay safe and stay warm or hot, wherever you're at. Okay. All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.